Have a listen to this. Have a listen to this. Now, that kind of talk this week dragged Australia's share market to a two-year low. There are, of course, complex reasons for that.
He was the big spender. Right. The big spender.
Doing the grocery shopping could take a huge chunk out of the family budget.
And that's finance.
Hello and welcome to Comedian versus Economist. We demystify the world of money and help you get a handle on the bigger picture. My name's Adam and we're joined as always by my little older brother and real life economist Thomas. Hi Thomas.
Yeah, g'day everyone. How are we?
I'm very well, thank you. Today on the show we're going to be asking Thomas, with Apple announcing their entry to the buy now pay later space, are buy now pay later customers richer than we think? We're going to find out where it's cheaper to buy a house than rent. Why are vinyl record sales going through the roof, Thomas? We'll get to that a bit later. But first, unemployment data out this week. Thomas, what did we learn?
It was another strong result. Unemployment down to 4.9%. Continuation of the theme we've seen over the past 6 months or so. So generally robust numbers, strong job growth, particularly full-time growth, participation rates holding up. So all the positive signs you want out of the jobs market, and the unemployment rate down now to 4.9. So we're into that critical 4 point something. So I remember about 6 to 9 months ago, I think it was, that Phil Lowe said, you know, he's going to keep interest rates low and keep pumping out the money until we get that unemployment down into 4 point something. Josh Frydenberg came out and backed that up, saying he wanted something similar, like mid fours. So we're now into that 4 territory. So
right.
Yeah.
So they said 4 point something. I'm guessing it wasn't 4.9. That no one's changing course on 4.9, are they?
No. We're not seeing that.
They're not busting out the champagne at the RBA.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished.
No. It's part of the three things they're looking for. The unemployment into 4 point somethings, and that's to give us wages growth in the 3 point somethings, and that's to get inflation into the 2 point somethings.
This all sounds horrifically unscientific.
Wow, yeah.
Why don't they just say 4.5 and call it like even? If we're going to be that vague about it, just go smack bang in the middle and make it, we're targeting 4.5, or does that tie them down too much?
A little bit, because you might get a 4.4, and is that underneath? And to one decimal point, the data is just not that accurate, you know. So you sort of like, you want to talk in broad bands because with your data came in at 4.9, but the true unemployment rate, remember, it's just based on a sample, so it's just like there's a lot of statistical error in this. So the actual unemployment rate, if you did a census of every employed person in the country, it might be 5.2, it might be 4.6. You don't know. It's somewhere around 4.9, but we call it 4.9 and
move on, and hopefully no one notices.
Yeah.
Now that there's been a lot of lockdowns obviously happening of late. Sydney, Melbourne,
Adelaide.
Well, not yet. We've moved to stage 4 restrictions as of recording today on Monday. But obviously there's a lot of impact from that. But that's not included in this data. Is that right?
No, we haven't seen that. We did see. Yeah. So the Sydney lockdowns, that's not in this data yet. So that's going to be interesting next month to see what that does to it, particularly because we don't have all the JobKeepers wound up. So what we saw in Victoria, I've got a chart here and I'll post this to our Instagram if that's still blowing up the internet.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah, massive. People love the charts. CVE podcast, if you're looking for it, on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah, it was actually. I couldn't remember. Yeah. Yeah, so what we saw in the Victorian lockdowns is that in the absence of JobKeeper, hours worked fell about 8%,
right,
but the total employment was steady. So what that means is that employers were hanging on to their workforce, the employment relationship was intact, but they were dialing back the hours and people were working less hours.
Is that because, so that's because of JobKeeper JobKeeper, I was going to say job seeker as well, but JobKeeper primarily. So you're saying people are working less hours, but they're still employed. Is that supported by JobKeeper?
No, I think it's more that the lockdowns are seen as temporary, and that if you're running a business and you want to, you lock down, you're hoping that in a month's time you're out of lockdown and you're ramping up activity again. So you don't want to then be like, you don't want to fire all your workforce at the first sign of lockdown and then 3 weeks later have to rehire your entire workforce. So that flexibility comes with just like winding back the hours and then picking things up again.
Yeah, I was certainly working less hours, or as my employer calls it, working from home.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. I mean, the labour market is very tight, and it's getting tighter. Like I've got another chart I'll post to.
Oh, you're too good to us, Thomas. You and your charts, just firing them out.
Look, another one, but the unemployment rate to the vacancy ratio. So the unemployment number of unemployed people to the amount of open jobs. So the vacancies, job vacancies, available jobs. That's now at the lowest level in, I don't know, 10 odd years, I think. Yeah, what's that? Back to 96, we got that data for. So that's the lowest level on record, going all the way back to 1996.
All the way back? You make it sound, when people talk about all the way back, Thomas, we're talking about weather going back to 1712. All the way back does not apply to 1996.
No, 20 or 25 years is that's an old data set in economic terms. Yeah, most data sets don't last that long. They get, like GDP goes back 50 odd years, but the definitions change and data series are reimagined and they get structural breaks.
The definition of all the way back changed. That's what's happened.
Yeah, so things should keep on tightening, but it is going to be interesting to see what effect Sydney has. So Sydney accounts for a quarter of the Australian economy, and a sizable chunk of the workforce. So if it's in a pretty deep lockdown, it doesn't look like we're sort of even reached a turning point with Sydney yet. So that could start unwinding. That could start eating into those job figures and making things a little worse. The RBA actually said, well, no, they didn't say. Someone in the Australian reported that the RBA, and this might have been a leak, we don't know, but the RBA is ready to go back to 5 billion a week money print. Remember when we talked last week that the RBA's wound things back, that they were printing money at a pace of 5 billion a week. They dialed it back to 4 billion, but they now sort of seem to be saying that they were willing to go back to 5 billion if things go a bit rocky as early as August, so as early as next month.
That's the beauty of money printing. When you're creating money from thin air, it doesn't take a lot to turn that ship around. You can literally just delete that 4 over there, delete that one, and put a 5. Type of 5. There you go, 5 billion. Now we have more money. Right.
Yeah, a lot of flexibility in monetary policy these days.
I was wondering, you often hear about unemployment, and we all think that presumably is good, right? Because everyone in society has a job, or more people have jobs, and if unemployment's low, then that's good. Are there any negative impacts that come from low unemployment? Does it have any flow-on effects that kind of can create a problem, or are we good?
No, it's a pretty good news story. Remember, to be counted in the unemployment data, you need to be actively looking for work. So you need to be someone who's looking for a job, and sad story, you can't find one. So if the unemployment rate's going down, it means that everyone who's out there looking for a job is finding jobs. Right. So if you decide to step out of the workforce and go on holidays, then you're just not counted in that data. So unemployment rate going down doesn't mean we're forcing people into the labour market, and that's a bad thing or anything. It means that people who want to work are able to find work.
Yeah, that's good.
And where it might be, it's sort of if in a super tight labour market, then wage costs go up typically. So wages start to increase, and if they get a run on, then you might argue that that's bad for the economy. But it's also not clear and cut. So there's sort of you can divide up the economy into the profit share and the wages share, and they typically eat into each other. So they got to sort of sum to one. And so if wages goes up and there's more wages, the workers are getting more of the slice of the pie, and that means there's less going to capital. How you feel about that depends on where you sit on the political spectrum.
Yeah, okay. I did have one other question though. I know a lot of people in the arts, a lot of comedians. Where do they fit into all this? A lot of them, I guess, they're self-employed. I mean, not everyone. Not everyone's lucky enough to have a podcast that brings in literally tens of dollars every month like I do. They're not kind of looking for work, so to speak, but when things shut down, they suffer. Actors and singers, and when cities lock down, their avenues for money making disappear. But they don't really do they fit into that unemployment jobs figure anywhere?
the numbers come from a survey which says, were you working this past in the survey period?
Okay.
So and you define that whether you're self-employed, I'm self-employed, so that I would count, even though I don't have an employer who's paying me a wage, I would still be counted as employed.
Just busking for economics on the street. Just do your chart.
Got some fresh charts.
Sit down in this seat. I'll do a caricature of you in chart form.
But yeah, and then to be unemployed is, again, it's like, if you didn't work, did you actively look for work, and did you want to work? Were you ready to start work? And if you select yes to that, so it's sort of, you self-nominate. So your mates could, if they were asked in this survey, could nominate themselves as unemployed.
Oh, they would offer to do a gig. They'd do a quick type 5. I'll do your survey, do your quick 10 minutes of stand up, and you pay me $10, say, whatever. Let's do it. Shout out to all the artists and people out there who are doing it tough, along with everyone else who's enduring more and more lockdowns across the country. We hope you're keeping well. Thomas, also, I read, you sent me this headline that said it's cheaper to buy than rent in 3411 suburbs. And I couldn't work it out. Why is rent so expensive in Putaruru, New Zealand, postcode 3411?
Putaruru, New Zealand, is that a 341? Isn't Victoria in the threes?
No, well, it is, but I don't think there's a town that has 3411. Send us a message.
Oh, yeah.
Comedian CVE at equitymates.com/CVE if you're repping 3411 somewhere in country Victoria. I think the postcode is assigned to country Victoria, but as far as I could tell, the closest, upon my extensive research, Thomas, was Putaruru, New Zealand.
Oh, gold. Yeah, no, there's 3,411 suburbs around. So this is, I see what you did there. Yeah, no, the core logic of release is saying that in 3,411 suburbs around the country, it's cheaper to buy than to rent.
Like, are we talking mortgage repayments are less than rentals? That's...
Yeah. So they figure out, they estimate the price of the house is worth, and they estimate the rent that you would pay on that property, even if it's not a rental. And then they compare the two. So assuming 80% LVR and 2.5% interest rate, something like that.
Yeah, right.
And then, and if the cost of servicing the mortgage is less than the rent, then they say it's cheaper to buy than rent.
That doesn't necessarily mean it's easier to get into the housing market than to rent in the housing market, or to rent in this market. Yeah,
so this is the big thing that it ignores, is the deposit. So it assumes that you have a deposit ready to go.
It's making it up. It's like saying it's cheaper to buy a Ferrari than it is to buy a Datsun, assuming you've been slowly paying off your Ferrari since you were born and you've only got $500 left to pay.
It's a little bit flawed. I mean, again, way back when, in 1996, when they started this, it wasn't such a big deal. Like, it was the deposit wasn't such a massive hurdle like it is now. Like,
right.
Servicing costs have come down, and it is true. It's cheaper to service a mortgage than it is to rent in a lot of places. The real barrier to buying property is the deposit these days, which has gone through the roof relative to incomes, and so that's the real pain point for people trying to get into a property. It's that deposit, but it didn't used to be that way. Like 20 odd years ago, it wasn't that hard to save a deposit. It didn't take you that long.
Right. What's the outlook then? Is a rent going to come down? I mean, interest rates going to go up, which means that then servicing the loan will become more expensive. Is it going to?
Yeah. So it's one in three. So 36.2% properties across the country are cheaper to buy than rent. So that's one in three. That's up from 33.9%. It's awkwardly is also 1 in 3, but slightly smaller 1 in 3. So that's up, and that's because there's two things going on. Rents are going up, and interest payments are going down because interest rates are going down. So the two sides of that equation. So rents are moving against it, and interest rates are coming down. So at some point, rents will probably level off. I mean, they're growing at a record pace at the moment, like highest pace in over a decade, 6% a year or something at the moment, and in regional areas just thumping along. even some capitals are growing in like high double digits, like 16, 18% or something. So rents are soaring at the moment.
But you've said before they're not tied to house prices, right?
Well, no, the causality runs one way.
Yeah.
So higher rents lead to higher house prices, but higher house prices don't lead to higher rents.
Okay.
Because you think about the rent is the return on the asset. So if the return goes up, then the value of the asset goes up. Yeah, so those higher rents will translate into higher prices, which will then translate into higher interest payments, which will then bring that ratio back into line. So I think we'll come back from that 36% back towards that 33% through higher house prices.
Have you got any data on Putaruru in New Zealand?
I don't. No.
Shout out to everyone listening in New Zealand, by the way. I know we do have some listeners over there, so thank you for tuning in.
Yeah. Well, the other thing about this data is that those cheap, in quotation mark, houses are primarily located in regional Australia. So 94.6% of homes in Townsville are cheaper to buy than rent.
Oh, really?
79% in Toowoomba, 88.8% in Cairns. Orana in regional New South Wales is 89.1%. Right. And then, but if you go into Sydney, what is it here? It's like in Ryde, it's 0.7%, 1.1% in the inner west, 1.3% in the northern beaches.
Wow. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So a real difference there. Yeah.
I feel like we do need to add like that little disclaimer at the bottom of those super advertisements, like we need a little disclaimer that's like, assuming you've got a deposit, when looking at these numbers. If you haven't got one, it's time to hit up your boomers. Okay, boomer, I need a deposit because it's cheaper to buy than rent, assuming I've got that sorted.
Yeah. Tell him CVE told you so.
Tell your dad CVE sent you. Good luck with that. Let us know how you get on. Hit us up on CVE podcast on Facebook and Instagram. Tell us how your conversation with your dad went when you asked for a deposit because it was cheaper to buy than rent. Oh, gosh. All right, look, we might take a short break there. We'll get a quick word from our sponsors. We'll be back with more Comedian versus Economist after this. Welcome back. You're on Comedian versus Economist. And Thomas, we're hearing 60% of Henrys are living paycheck to paycheck. Shout out to my friend Jane and her son, Henry, who I know are both big fans of the show. But I'm guessing Jane's son's not what we're talking about here, Thomas.
No. So this is a survey come out of America looking at millennials and their spending habits, and found that what they call the Henrys is an acronym: high earners, not yet rich. Sorry, not rich yet. That's the Henry.
High earners, not rich yet.
Yeah, that's your Henrys.
Where do they come up with this stuff?
Yeah, and it's like the dinks, double income, no kids.
Yeah, but at least that wasn't like a name. Like they must have had that name first and then just worked in some words to fit it.
Oh, yeah.
Could have been a Nigel. New iPhone, get everything else later. Assuming everything else is hyphenated.
Yeah, it was like the Panks, the professional auntie, no kids, was identified as.
Professional auntie.
No kids. Yeah. The marketers locked onto that, realised that they were responsible for a lot of purchases for like their nieces and nephews.
Right. Brilliant.
And so like became a sort of a character to market to.
Right. There you go.
And that's where our Henrys come from. But this survey out of the US by a payments company found that 60% of them earning $100,000 plus, so six figures, that's 134,000 in Aussie dollars, are living paycheck to paycheck, so just not saving anything.
Right. Well, that's not much, is it? $100,000 a year? That's not enough to get by on. There's minimum 5 different streaming service subscriptions now. Minimum.
Oh, who's got time?
Henrys have got time.
Henrys have got time. Yeah, they don't have kids.
They got no kids. They got no dependencies. They're living paycheck to paycheck. They're like, I need some streaming in my life. I've got seasons upon seasons.
But no, I reckon that's right. There's two things going on. $100,000 doesn't go as far as it used to. That's probably true. And but like also like. I'm presuming most of these are coming out of university. There's another study found that the average Henry leaves university with a debt of $80,000. Right. So that's a big hole to be starting out your career in. You got work for a long time to pay that off.
3/4 of a year done. Just stay another year with your folks. punch out that debt.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a fair whack.
That's a fair whack, yeah. But there's also, they talk about lifestyle creep. So yeah, it's really hard to, I mean, this is sort of across the spectrum. This isn't just for high income earners or for young people. It's people across the spectrum have difficulty staying on top of their burn. So remember, like, savings comes out of your earn and your burn. You need to be burning much less than you're earning to be able to save anything.
What are you, the barefoot investor?
Yeah, that's barefoot. Yeah.
Is that really what it is? Is that from him?
Yeah, I reckon. I don't know if he came up with it, but
right. Yeah.
I don't know. It's definitely in his book. Yeah, but you got to stay on top of that burn. But it's like there's a whole marketing industry dedicated to getting you to burn more than you need. And it's really hard not to, particularly if you're earning, good money, then you want to be living in the right neighborhoods and driving the right cars and all of that business. So it's.
I came up with another acronym for that.
Oh, yeah?
It's MAX. Maintain Affluence. Xylophone. I couldn't think of anything for that. Right, so living paycheck to paycheck, though, we mentioned at the top of the show that Apple has just announced Apple Pay Later, which worst marketing name ever, but they're entering the buy now, pay later space, as seemingly like every big player is now. Like PayPal announced Pay in 4. We've already got Afterpay, Zip, about 100 other buy now, pay laters. Is that kind of, does that marry up really well with the Henrys, do you think? Is that kind of what's supporting the buy now, pay later space?
I think that's what I learned, or what I started thinking about with this. Like, I presume buy now, pay later was, targeted at lower income earners, with people who don't have enough money to, buy the goods they want in the moment. But I think this shows us that it's going to appeal to high income earners as well, and that it's not just your basic staples and low end consumer goods that are going to go on buy now, pay later, but potentially higher up the sort of luxury spectrum.
Right.
For, Ferraris or whatever might end up on buy now, pay later if you can. But do you know what I mean? So we're not just talking about a lower socioeconomic group that's going to, a customer base for the buy now, pay later, but it might be right across the consumer spectrum.
You might say, Thomas, that it appeals to all people, which is planned expenditure, otherwise pay later everything. All right, I'll stop now. I'll stop.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Quit while you're ahead.
I'd stopped being ahead probably sometime around the start of this show. Look, we might move on, because there's big news, Thomas, that affects probably a lot of Henrys, dare I say. But we've got a vinyl shortage, Thomas. It's the biggest boom in vinyl since flooring in the 80s. It's vinyl records in particular, you can't get them. What's going on?
No, it's going off. Yeah. Well, yeah. So demand surged with COVID. So vinyl sales were up almost 30% in 2020. Yeah, so a huge jump. I've got a chart here. I'll share that to the Instagram as well. Yeah, but gone vertical in 2020, and that's probably just gone even higher in 2021 so far. So yeah, so just a huge surge in demand for vinyl. And so I think the industry is sort of saying that it's all the money that people would have spent on concerts, people are now just putting into their record collections. And because they're spending time at home, you're going to sit around, listen to some music.
But a lot of people must have taken it up, though. Like, I didn't go, I can't get out to see Green Day anymore, so I guess I'll go and buy some vinyl. Like, I just play it on Spotify or whatever. Yeah,
it's a bit tenuous. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's booming. Maybe it's a bit like nostalgic, or I don't know. It's hard. Maybe it's I don't know, is it the expense? Is it the inconvenience? I don't know what the pulling power of vinyl is.
Yeah, right. Maybe it's just like everything old is new again, right? Like everything, fashion is cyclical. Like mullets are back in now. So mullets are back in, maybe so is vinyl.
Who knows? But whatever the case is, it's booming. But so one music executive at Billboard was quoted as saying that pre-COVID, we had a global capacity to manufacture 160 million albums a year. But to meet what the market wants right now, we need to be producing somewhere between 320 and 400 million.
Yeah,
so at least double the capacity. And so this is sort of a classic inflation story, and a lot of what we're seeing is that what we're seeing, COVID triggered a massive sudden shift in consumer behavior, and the supply chains just weren't ready. Just the production just wasn't able to come online and meet demand.
It seems a really strange reaction to COVID. Like, you know, when people panic buying toilet paper and stuff, it's like, far out, man. I'm going to get this now or never. I'm going to get some vinyl back in my life, get some records, start spinning some vinyl. Seems a strange reaction. I don't know. Do I invest in cassette tapes now? Like, is that the next phase of this? People start like, if only there was some way we could play these while we were out and about.
Yeah, Walkmans are due a comeback.
Walkmans, I know, get all over it. I read the quote from that article. It was like, the guy said, we even had a new signing we were really excited about for 2021, but because of vinyl delays, the artist has to sit on their record until 2022 and wait till it gets released. What? They have to wait, like, oh man, if only there was another way to distribute music in 2021. Like, something's gone a bit skew here, hasn't it? Like,
yeah. Well, I think streaming has monstered the market. Like, I think if you're a musical artist, you know, you get nothing out of Spotify. If you're an indie artist, Spotify gets you nothing per play. So, like, there's no point releasing it for free because you get nothing for it. So vinyl is sort of like there's a tangible product there. People are willing to pay for it because they get a good hit of nostalgia with their album. Yeah, and it's a way to make some money to sell a product because you're not going to sell a CD. CDs don't have any of that like that kudos.
Almost like selling a band T-shirt that you can listen to.
Yeah,
like if you're into it, you know, like you get that thing that's like, cool, I've got this, I can put it on my shelf and show my friends or whatever. I heard like Amazon and real those big sort of chains are getting into it as well, which must be putting more pressure on supply. Yeah,
they're cashing in. Target, Walmart, yeah. So they now account for 13% of sales, up from 4% in 2018.
Yeah, wow.
So they're chasing that money too. But it's a demand story.
So all the mainstream stuff will be going there, like, you know, I don't know. Can you get Lady Gaga on vinyl? I guess you can.
Sure you can.
The Wiggles?
Yeah. Ooh. Oh, wow.
We've mentioned the Wiggles before on this show. I wonder if you can get them on vinyl. Limited release vinyl pressing of Big Red Car or something.
So my kids love, we've got a record player. They love it because it's like it moves. It's got moving parts. You've got to move the needle on it. Makes a huge noise if you bump it.
I don't know. I wouldn't let my kids anywhere near my record player if I had one. No, but my youngest Emily, she's got a CD player. Same deal. She loves it. We got all these old CDs lying around. She's kind of discovering music through this little CD player that she can just grab them out, play them, and she doesn't need internet access. We don't have to worry about her straying onto YouTube and watching some weird anime from God knows where.
Always ends up there. Yeah.
Well, you know, we must get a question probably every week, Thomas, on the email cve@equitymates.com. When can I get the Comedian vs. Economist podcast on vinyl? Bad news. You're going to have to wait until at least 2022, unfortunately, but we will keep trying. So in the meantime, we hope you'll keep tuning into the podcast wherever you might be listening to it. And that I think that brings us to the end of the show, Thomas.
Sounds good.
Yeah, nice one. We do really appreciate you tuning in. Check us out, CVE Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, CVE@equitymates.com or on the website equitymates.com/CVE. Loved bringing you the show this week. We look forward to you tuning in again next week. We'll see you then. Bye.
Comedian vs. Economist is a product of Equity Mates Media. All information in this podcast is for education and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional finance, legal, or tax advice. The hosts of Comedian vs. Economist are not financial professionals and are not aware of your personal financial circumstances. Before making any financial decisions, you should read the product disclosure statement and, if necessary, consult a licensed financial professional. Do not take financial advice from a podcast. For more information, head to the disclaimer page on the Equity Mates website where you can find ASIC resources and find a registered financial professional near you. In the spirit of reconciliation, Equity Mates Media and the hosts of Comedian vs Economist acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today.